If you struggle with imposter syndrome, low self-esteem and confidence in relationships, social anxiety, then watch this video. Now, if you're an ethnic minority and you grew up in areas where your culture was not really celebrated or included, let's say at school or in your peer relationships, then sometimes that can create something called a shame wound. A shame wound is where we reject aspects of ourselves because the status quo or majority members around us aren't very accepting or give us a feeling of safety in relation to cultural traditions and norms. So what ends up happening is we have like this splitting where the part of us that is westernized and included in the majority members' customs and traditions feels safe, but then the part of us that is more from our original cultural background feels neglected and rejected. So when we show up in spaces later in life, that really shines forward, and that shame wound shows its face in the form of nervousness, hesitation, or uncertainty. When we're presenting only half of ourselves, that means half of ourself is having some uneasy feelings. Even think back to what it was like being an 80s and 90s kid. What was our mass media representation as a South Asian population? It was Abu from The Simpsons. If you can name like any other representation from that generation or around that generation, please let me know, because I really tried to think about it and I'm like, wow, look how times have changed. Not only is South Asian culture really represented in music, movies, TV, social media, also specifically Punjabi culture is really on the map now. But if that wasn't there when we were forming our sense of self, then it can really show up in these different problematic ways. Being a kid, and I had a lot of Caucasian friends. I lived in an area where there was not a lot of diversity. And I remember when my friends would come over, I would have that knot in my stomach of embarrassment and shame when it came to the smell of Indian food or even my bibi's clothes, even when she would speak to me in Punjabi. And now I reflect on that and I have that cringy, embarrassed feeling that that was ever a part of my behavior. But back then, I viewed different as unsafe because that's the messaging that was in the world, that you had to ascribe to what majority members were behaving like. There was no room for multiculturalism and diversity as there is now, for the most part. Now, I understand that things are different now, but our history and our upbringing and our childhood still hangs out in our body. So if you find this is happening to you, that you're constantly struggling at work with presentations, or you don't have full confidence when it comes to your personal life or professional life, then it's really, really important to reach out to a practitioner and heal that shame wound. Get it out and away from your body at last. There's lots of different modalities that different therapists will use to help you achieve that goal, but one of the different type of approaches is something called somatic therapy. As you know, embarrassment and shame is a very physical feeling. Usually it happens in the gut. That means we need a physical approach to get it out and away from us. What are your thoughts? Is this something you can relate to? As a kid, what was your experience as being a ethnic minority? Were people around you more accepting, or did you share that kind of shameful, embarrassed energy as well? Let me know.